Quick note, I played this game through emulation for this review. Since viewers expressed an interest in clarity surrounding the emulation experience when I use an emulator, I will bring up when and how I changed the experience. Otherwise, I played the game as close to as was originally intended as possible. I played Driver 2 a lot as a kid. I never beat it, but I played it a ton. Probably not as much as Driver 1, since for a long time I had to rely on various friends who owned it in order to play the sequel. In that way, it was like a taste of the future. 4 cities that seemed even bigger than the original, secret areas, secret cars, and secret buttons you could access using the new ability to get out of your car, the ability to sit in a chair, and so many more set-piece areas to find across more varied areas. In the early 2000s, since I wouldn't get to play GTA until like 2003, Driver 2 really did feel like a revolutionary sequel. Even today, with hindsight, that's not an inaccurate sentiment. Despite the short development time, Driver 2 really does feel like a game with tons of ambition and lofty goals. There are more cutscenes, with more animation, better visuals, better voice acting, and longer runtimes. The steering, while I'm 95% sure it's digital even on the analog stick, just like in Driver 1, feels a bit better, almost as if it has a gentler curve toward its maximum steering speed, so that it's less touchy and volatile. The game starts off easier for a few missions, which might irk some. I, for example, love that opening garage checklist in Driver 1, but is better for the casual player. They removed the branching mission options to focus on a linear set of missions, but that also means you can't accidentally lock yourself into a harder option anymore. The mission you have next is the mission you have next, which for someone like me allows for better focus on accomplishing what needs to be done, because I'm not wondering how much easier the other mission might have been instead. The game has more engaging challenges and more interesting set-piece moments, like the moving bridges in Chicago, the truck throwing bombs in the mission Stop the Truck, or a moment where you have to jump your car onto a ferry. The mission Beat the Train near the start of Las Vegas is a quick little set-piece unto itself. It lasts probably less than a minute, and all you do is chase a train a mile or so to get ahead of it, park on the tracks where another car is with someone in the trunk you need to rescue. You get in the car and narrowly escape the tracks before the train hits you. Moments like this are cinematic, unique, and easy enough to figure out. It's a thrill rather than a frustration. Both the extra engagement and the set pieces are afforded to the game by the world design, and the ability to get out of your vehicle. And in many missions, getting out of your vehicle gives you a bit of added depth, where the player might feel like they need to decide between getting a car with fresh damage or felony meters, and they have to balance that against their remaining time. You probably won't have that option often, but it will arise here and there, so it feels satisfying when you take advantage of it. Pursuers tend to back off near many destinations this time around, lessening frustrations that were super common in the first game. Once you get close to the goal, they conveniently fall behind just a few blocks out. And more never spawn once you're nearing your destination either, which was nice when the timer was really strict. Little things like this show a heightened interest in making missions feel rewarding instead of simply difficult. The point being, there was a lot to love about Driver 2. Even when their changes had to sacrifice something people liked about the original, like the ability to choose between several mission strands, it doesn't feel like it was wholly without intention. I can assume that was cut due to the limited development time, but the most was made of it. With that in mind, holy shit, this game is so rough in so many ways. The draw distance here is absolutely dreadful, and when you combine that with the low resolution and especially the strong dithering during nighttime missions, it can feel incredibly frustrating trying to navigate around obstacles at times. That gets 10 times worse when you realize that the frame rate here barely functions. There are times where it certainly hits 30 FPS. These are an outlier. In fact, there are times where the game slows down into the single digits, and again, this is old school slowdown, where the game logic doesn't move until a new frame is produced, slowing the actual gameplay down with it rather than just getting visually stuttery. On the one hand, this really can help during some of the hardest missions, and even an emulator overclock of 200% won't completely solve the issue anyway. You can go higher, but I never tried it. Either way, the slowdown gives you more time to think and fine-tune your reactions. On the other hand, it's incredibly painful to watch, makes the game feel tedious to wade through when it happens, and it also leaves a big question mark on gameplay as a whole. You never quite know when it'll slow down to a crawl outside of specific corners that always do it. And because of that, you also never know exactly when it's going to speed back up. You have to be heavy on the steering inputs or brakes when it's running at 5 FPS or whatever. So if it suddenly speeds back up to 25 to 30, you might end up sending your car straight into traffic or slowing your rear end right into pursuers. And just in case the first few missions made you think the game overall was going to be a cakewalk, Driver 2 gets difficult as hell around 6 missions in. There are 39, I believe. Chase the Intruder is your first real test, and it's not going to go easy on you. From here, most missions are still relatively easy, but there will be spikes, some for a couple missions in a row, where Driver 2 hammers you into the ground. Some missions, like Chase the Intruder, during which I had the CPU overclocked to 200% in order to see how it felt with the slowdown mitigated, have multiple, mostly scripted routes opponent vehicles can take. These are designed to test your raw driving skills, rather than your ability to strategize, and boy howdy are they brutal. For now though, you're simply tasked with keeping up, meaning the true issue with these types of missions hasn't reared its ugly head yet. The mission Stop the Truck, near the beginning of Havana, is another one like Chase the Intruder, but this time you're tasked with doing damage to the vehicle you're chasing, which is also throwing bombs your way. This is another chase where the route the vehicle takes seems largely scripted, and I don't think these routes would work if the opposing vehicle could be knocked about. As such, hitting them doesn't move their car, but instead bounces yours off like a pinball. This is when you realize how awful the design conceits in these rigid style chase missions can be, because you have to hope that your car doesn't ricochet off into other obstacles whenever you try to do damage. Combine that with the traffic, bombs coming out of the back, the short distance window before you lose them and fail, and the fact that for some reason a big truck full of explosives has the same top speed as you, and missions like this can be infuriating. You can tell the difference between these rigid chases and dynamic ones because the dynamic ones have opposing cars take damage based on the severity of the collision itself, like in the mission after Stop the Truck. The scripted ones likewise see your opponents take a flat percentage of damage per hit. The dynamic chase cars will also drive far more unpredictably, crash into traffic, buildings, or light poles, and will sometimes even just take U-turns over and over. You also often can't lose the vehicle in dynamic chases, instead only running out of time. If we rewind back to the mission after Chase the Intruder, titled Kane's Compound, you'll notice it's a cool idea where you're tasked with escaping a maze of warehouses. Vans will try to block your way, so you have to find the correct route. The problem is that the game pulls a fast one on you 2/3 the way through, and expects you to drive all the way back down the street, away from your objective, to find another open warehouse, the only way to get to your destination. This is a mission you're guaranteed to fail at least your first few times, since you'll be wasting tons of time memorizing the first half. Then you'll probably fail it a few more times looking for this one exit through the other warehouse area. This puzzle-like design shows up a few times, and while I don't mind it at all in principle, and the final mission strung together is rad, it sometimes feels kind of spiteful. Later on in Vegas, the mission Car Bomb has a similarly frustrating ending. You're expected to take a car bomb back to the person who set it up before it explodes. Then you have to escape the blast before it happens by trotting down the alleyway. but said alleyway is a completely random hole right where you park that just looked like more low-res textures to me. So it took me several attempts to find, since no matter how much time you have when you get there, it defaults to 10 seconds when you park. Clarity here would make this really cool, but the lack of clarity due to how the game updates your instructions with a quick flash of text instead made it anger-inducing. Having to watch the intro scenes every time you retry a mission only makes this sort of thing worse. The mission Stakeout near the end of Vegas might be the worst for low frame rate, needlessly cheap and aggressive cops, length, repetitiveness since you're just going down the Vegas Strip for most of it, and it legitimately has like a 25-second intro scene every time. This type of mission is exactly why I was afraid to look at this game for the channel, for similar reasons to when I looked at the original Driver back in the day. You can deal with pursuers fairly easily by just cutting off ongoing traffic a lot, but pursuers clearly have several invisible levels of difficulty, and the more challenging ones don't fall for this trick easily. They also tend to be faster, hit harder, and stick right to your bumper quite often. The mission Save Jones, where you have to wreck a green sedan, has the potential to be really difficult as well. Up to that point, it's the only chase where the car you need to wreck has the same amount of health you do. It's a dynamic AI chase rather than a rigid one, and their car is still just as fast as yours, so catching them and doing decent damage in the time limit can be a nightmare, or it can be cake if they corner themselves between a wall and a light pole. Thankfully, this happened to me at the last minute, so I only had to do it once. Likewise, the third to last mission and the last mission are a nightmare basically no matter what. The first of them is another scripted, rigid chase where you have to damage the opposing car enough, and it is absolutely the most ridiculously precise challenge here. There's more or less only one way to catch up with the other car, with rocks and traffic and all manner of other obstacles including cliff sides surrounding that one path ahead. This still took me 45 minutes despite getting lucky and landing on the right side of my opponent at the right time so that I could rub his car to death. The final mission has you chasing a helicopter across Rio. Obviously, the helicopter is completely scripted. The difficult part is that you have goons chasing you near constantly, and similar to the hardest invisible setting for the police, these guys are really fast, accelerate like they've got jet engines strapped to their cars, hit like a truck, and don't fall for traffic shenanigans easily. And once again, this isn't a short mission, and it's kinda up to luck when they spawn and in what direction. If they spawn facing you, you might just be screwed. I firmly believe that the only reason the website How Long to Beat says this is like a 12 to 16 hour game is likely because missions like these are so tediously brutal. I beat the game in less than 8 hours, which I attribute to a wealth of luck on top of my previous experience with the game, my general high skill at driving games, and my comfort with terrible frame rates since that's what I grew up with. If the game's rougher design bits weren't so affecting, you could probably beat the game in like 4 to 6 hours instead, genuinely, or even as little as 2 hours. If the resolution was raised so that you could see where you're going, if it was rebalanced a bit here and there, if the cutscenes weren't so compressed and the performance and draw distance were fixed, I think this could be a great game. As it is, it has great aspects to it and great moments, and most of it is good, but please, if you're planning to use an emulator to play this game, use a higher resolution, save states, and a CPU overclock. All that being said, the game is indeed stuck in this awkward place where I think it would have felt underwhelming as an early PS2 game. I can't help but to imagine it ending up like the clunky, cringy, frustrating, barren Test Drive reboot for PS2. But at the same time, Driver 2 is also too much for the PS1. Had it been on PS2, we might be in a very different world where Driver was top dog for open world driving games during the PS2 era. Or it could have led to an even worse fate for the game, which already struggled compared to the success of the original. Once I finished the story mode, I decided to partake in my favorite Driver 2 pastime from when I was young, Take a Ride mode, and I also tried the other extra modes too. For all of this, I decided to overclock to 200% and raise the resolution of the game. After you beat Driver 2, you unlock invincibility, immunity so that cops don't aggro to you, and 2 little challenge races. You can also unlock these early by finding secret panels in Rio, but that requires other cheats to unlock Rio early, or making your way through most of the game just to unlock Rio anyway. Beyond that, you also have minigame versions of chases, getaways, a super extreme police chase, and then 3 race types. My best friend and I spent tons of time one night just doing the survival mode. It took us forever to even just survive for a minute. They were mostly smart in designing these minigames too. In the getaways, at least the one I tried, the cop is alone and invincible, so you actually have to escape fair and square, rather than just backing up into them until their car dies. But at the same time, you'll never be on the cusp of losing one cop, only for another to randomly spawn at the last second. There will only ever be one. Likewise, survival will never see you escape, no matter what, so you have to actually work to survive. Though it's worth noting that both of these modes break if you have immunity and invincibility on. Gate racing sees you try to get through 100 cone gates before the time runs out. Hitting a cone is a 1-second penalty, but going through a gate gives you a second back. Trailblazer is the same thing, but you have to intentionally hit a line of cones instead. And the mode titled Checkpoint gives you 5 checkpoints you have to hit in order. You have infinite time, and you want to finish as fast as possible. Traffic in these modes really shouldn't exist though. It puts too much luck in the mix to care about fast times. Otherwise, they're solid additions, but I think considering this game's notoriously short development cycle, I would have preferred they were cut in favor of improving the rest of the game. Finally, Take a Ride is the bread and butter mode. It's free roam basically. It also offers you secret cars to find and unlock, which is always great fun. This was the mode I spent all my time on as a kid, with the immunity and invincibility cheats on, just exploring these large maps. Meanwhile, I couldn't try any of the multiplayer modes for this video. There were all sorts of fake secrets to not find back in the day as well. Places like Cheat Code Central allowed people to submit their own secrets and cheats. The 2 I remember most vividly were one that somehow allowed you to, and I quote, see Tanner's big wang, which we were so astonished by that we just had to see if it was real. The other said that if you walked around the big lake in Rio 3 times in a row, a nearby garage would spawn a super secret Ferrari. Obviously, as kids, we didn't know that they'd need to license a Ferrari in order to use it. We didn't know how age ratings worked, or even how time-consuming making a CG scene of Tanner's big wang would be. So we wasted time on testing dozens of these sorts of faux secrets. Still, fond memories regardless. And now with Rule 34, I'm sure anyone who wants to see Tanner's big wang can easily do so. One little secret that did work, at least on the copy I played the most, reprint updates might have changed this, is that if you know your car's doomed and you're not in a chase, you can hold the triangle button and usually the game won't end, allowing you to press up in order to get out of the car and find a new one, when otherwise your session would have ended. This includes when the car has flipped over, though it doesn't always work. Quirks like that, or the fact that 99 times out of 100, only 3 of the 4 of your hubcaps will fall off, just like in Driver 1, and that those same hubcaps will be missing from every car as soon as you enter it, or that you can make Tanner sit on chairs, are burned into my brain. And considering Driver was one of my favorite series until I finally got a PS2 and got GTA San Andreas, I'm really glad I've finally beaten this game, and I'm glad my first time was for this channel. Right after I finished the game for this video, I also learned that there's an unofficial PC port which has steadily been worked on for the last few years, so I decided to try it out, and after ironing out a few quirks, I found a rather great experience. Redriver 2, as it's called, is rather bare bones, and right now it's still stuck to only 30 FPS, but it's easy to lock it to that 30 FPS target. The draw distance can be pushed out, the resolution raised greatly, controls remapped. So far, it's an excellent way to play the game. You're missing save states with Redriver 2, so it might be too difficult for a lot of people, but I can't express enough just how much that solid frame rate improves things, as well as the lack of texture warping and such. I got through Chase the Intruder in one try, and all of Chicago in only 29 minutes. It's pretty easy to set up, it seemingly has more updates coming, and it's open source, another name for being OpenDriver, so that others can make offshoot versions. You can inject textures and models and such, and as far as I understand it, you can even use it to play Driver 1's content if you compile it using that game. If you're going to try Driver 2, and you're not that great at games like this, I would definitely still recommend using RetroArch, a CPU overclock, higher resolution, and save states. If you are great at these types of games though, or you refuse to use save states, Redriver is more or less already the best option. It's likely how I'll continue playing the game into the future. Overall, Driver 2 is a bit of a paradox. It's a game I enjoy, but it's also a game that has moments I loathe. It's a game that pushes the franchise and games as a whole forward, but it's also a game that feels woefully unprepared for its release. I'm not sure if I can recommend it or not, but I sure as hell want to, and I think that says a lot.